Welcome, everyone. This is Jim, and it's time for another Jim Boy Star podcast. And I have Pete with me, aka Kenshin1913, a Let's Player. He was on for the episode called I Am a Dragon Warrior. And this is kind of a sequel to that because we're actually talking about Dragon Warrior 2 slash Dragon Quest 2. Pete, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Jim. How
Good.
about you?
Good. Excited to talk about Dragon Quest 2, Dragon Warrior 2, whatever we're going to go. I forgot if I kept going back and forth on the last episode about going through both names. But tell me a little bit about, because I know just like Dragon Warrior 1, we started talking about all the different versions of Dragon Warrior 1 you did your Let's Play on. Why don't we do
Hmm.
the same thing here with 2? Because I know there have been some remakes or something like that, correct?
Right.
So,
So pretty much, I guess like if you want to look at it, Dragon Warrior 2 is a sequel to the first one, of course, and it pretty much takes place. I want to say 100 years after the events of the first game,
mhm.
and pretty much as you remember at the end of the first game, the hero and the princess they go off and they explore different worlds or whatever, and they have kids and whatnot. And pretty much the three main characters of this game are all cousins, and they are all descendants of the hero from the first game, who is a descendant of the hero of Edric.
So okay, and now, actually, you know what? I'm not even going to touch that yet. But what I do want to talk about, what about in terms of when this game was released compared to the first one? Was it a long period of time, or was it a very short period of time, if you can remember?
Well, I believe Dragon Warrior, the first one came out in '86, and this one pretty much came out a year afterwards in 1987. So
Okay,
not too long afterwards.
a lot of different aspects in Dragon Warrior 2, a lot of different new gameplay aspects.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk a little without going into the story yet, but just a little bit about what was added. Obviously, there's three party members. That's probably the biggest change I would say
Hmm.
to this Dragon Warrior 2 compared to 1. Let me see. There was some ship. You can now can have a ship to sail around the world. That's
Yep.
very new. Is there anything else that you could think of off the top of your head? Uh, maybe if it's not so major either.
Right. Well, of course, since you had more party members, you actually had to fight more enemies as well, and that ended up proving to be pretty difficult. And the thing about this was they didn't make each character the same. So for your main character, the Prince of Maidenhall, or as I like to call him, the hero, he pretty much does it. Well, I don't call him dumb, but he's sort of dumb because he doesn't learn any spells in the game. He's pretty much your tank, the guy with a lot of strength and a lot of defense, and he's the strongest guy. Then the next character, which I usually call the Prince or the Prince of Cannock, he's kind of like an in between. He's a little strong, and he gets some healing spells, and he's got various spells, but he's kind of like the middle. And then you have between like a fighter and a wizard.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, you get the Princess of Moonbrook, or the princess, and she is a pure mage. She gets a lot of MP, but not enough or not too much where you can just kind of like constantly cast spells or whatever. And so she's a typical mage, low defense, lots of good spells. She's really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
So they had that kind of balance of characters. One interesting feature about this game actually is it was probably one of the first games that I know of that did, like, it had two different world map themes, like overworld themes.
Sure, that's
So
right. Mm-hmm.
so when you had like one or two characters on the group, you heard a certain song play while you're walking around, and then once you recruited that third party member, the music of the overworld actually changed, which was pretty cool. Now, if
Mm-hmm.
you happen to have someone who died in the battle, and then you continue to walk around the world, it would go back to the world map music of the two people, which I thought was pretty cool at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which they do carry over. to I know at least Dragon Warrior 4 in the final chapter there. Whoever you have as the head of the party, I think their music actually plays with it. So it's something that they certainly used at least once before, probably even more than that actually. Now that I'm
Right, right,
thinking about
right.
it.
And
So
so they had like they also had a lot of improvements to this game consider versus the other game. Obviously, since this world is much larger than the first world, and actually, interestingly enough, the first world is sort of in this entire I believe the name of the world is called it's called Alfgard is the one in the first game, and then I forget what the name of the town is or the world is called. But anyways, so it's pretty much just a larger expanse of the first game. So and that's why you need a ship. Like you were saying, they added a ship. They have ocean battles. They have land battles. Also in this game, they also have different terrains as you go through the world. There's like a snowy area near the end of the game, and then there's like a lot more caves and stuff. There's a lot more stuff to explore since the game is pretty much, I would say, double the size of the first one.
oh yeah, definitely. So going back to what we were talking about before, so how many Let's Plays have you done of Dragon Warrior 2 slash Dragon Quest 2?
Well, I right at this point I've done two, but I plan on doing one more of the iOS or Android version, the mobile version, just because I feel that that's like the pinnacle version. It's
Mm,
the most user-friendly version of the game because originally, when there were certain features in the game that obviously since it was an NES game, they couldn't fit all these extra little quests that they wanted to put
right.
inside the game. So they added it in the remake version. They added a few in the remake versions, and then the iOS version does an even better job of the remake version. So like in another example is like when you attack a monster in the first game or in the NES version, if you attack a monster and he's already killed, you actually just attack air. So you pretty much waste a turn. So you have to be real strategic in that game.
Mm,
As people, have gotten more quote unquote coddled or whatever you want to call it, used to being able to attack an enemy and then if they die, it just goes on the next person.
mm,
That's a feature that has been added. And also in the NES version, when you cast a return or the spell the warp around the world to go back to a save point, you weren't able to decide which castle or which save point you wanted to go to. In the iOS version, you actually are able to do that. And then finally, another reason why I think it's like the pinnacle is because of the way that they do the equipment, and there's an extra quest in the game.
mm,
So like in the NES version, there's certain equipment that each character can equip, and they kind of like screw over the prince, where he isn't able to equip as much stuff as you wish.
okay.
So in the remake versions, they actually fixed that and gave him more options to equip more stuff,
Okay.
which is really good because it makes him a lot more versatile. A lot of people always joke that he's kind of like the weakest link out of the three because he's always getting killed a lot, and
Mm,
I kind of like him. He's one of my more favorite characters of the game, and I like that he ends up being a lot easier to use in the remake versions.
right. So it's interesting because again, just like when we talked about Dragon Warrior 1, here I am thinking all it is the exact same game, but really in this case, you as you're talking to me here and mentioning everything, there's definitely additions that for those that haven't played it like myself, for those that haven't played the in a while, like there's new things that you'll experience. Now, I did notice, Pete, that now when we around the time when we were airing, a couple of weeks ago, we aired the first special, "I Am a Dragon Warrior."
Hmm.
And to be fair, I don't usually like sugarcoating things. We recorded that quite a while before that. Um,
Right.
but one thing that while I was doing that and telling you about the whole hey, this is when our special's going to air, I noticed that you started doing a Dragon Warrior on your page, on your YouTube page for, like you said, I think you said for the iOS.
Right.
Uh, So,
the mobile version. Yeah.
so is this? And then I think I might have heard you say at some point while watching this Let's Play that you are going to re-explore other Dragon Warriors, and I guess 2 is included.
Yeah. So I want to just kind of showcase, like the second one, I'm totally gonna replay
Mm-hmm.
because of all the extra cool stuff, and but like the third game, I'll probably have a video or two about it, but I don't plan on replaying that one, just because I don't feel like it's a really good version.
Mm-hmm.
Not to like bash that game. I
Sure.
love that game, but I feel like that version, the mobile version or the iOS version of Dragon Warrior 3 is not the best. I would suggest a different version. But if you've never played it before and you only could have access to this version, I'd say go ahead and play it because it is a terrific game.
Right now,
But I do plan on going back and playing some of the other games over again, especially since this year, which is 2016, if you're listening to it during the year, it's actually the 30th anniversary of the Dragon Quest series. So
mm,
I figured that since I'm sort of known for it, I'll go back and replay some of them in a updated version.
yeah, I really like the idea. I'm really looking forward to checking out, when you do that, whichever ones that you're going to wind up choosing. And it's
Hmm.
weird because I actually recently started playing a game, Dragon Quest Heroes. And
Yeah.
for those that don't know, it's like a Dynasty Warriors type of format that has a bunch of Dragon Quest characters. And to be honest with you, in my opinion, very random characters. I don't really like the god. It's basically a if you love Dragon Quest, this is a game for you, even though it's not the traditional playing. But now that I know and have been revisiting, you'll be revisiting these other Dragon Warrior games. I'm probably gonna be like, all right, let's see. Do I want that character in the next Dragon Quest Heroes? Because there's another one coming
Hmm.
out already.
Yeah, they
Uh,
plan on releasing that. I think it's probably going to come out in America next year, but I heard it might be out by the end of the year for Japan.
mm,
And actually, Dragon Quest Heroes did sell pretty well in the American in the American market.
that's kind of surprising, only because of, if you remember, that was a really big in-depth talk that we had of Dragon Warrior slash Quest's popularity in the United States compared to Japan.
Right,
But
right.
I'm
Yeah,
glad to hear
it's
it. I'm glad to
immensely
hear it.
popular in Japan.
So where does Dragon Quest 2 fall for you in, maybe not, I don't need a specific number, but like, is it an upper half of your favorite, a bottom half, in the middle? Where do you put Dragon Quest 2?
Well, I'd probably put Dragon Quest 2, not to knock this game.
Mm,
I'd probably put in the lower tier.
okay.
And the only reason why is because of the difficulty
Mm,
of the game. So the game starts out pretty smooth, as you're playing, especially the NES version. And then at a certain point, the difficulty ramps up really, really high, especially the last area. A lot of people might know if they played the game, The Road to Roan,
mm,
or even Roan itself, the final area of the game, is very, very, very hard to get through. And I remember it used to really just bust my hump or bust my balls trying to get through it. It was a really, really difficult area to get through. And then at the end, they just threw all the nastiest monsters at you, which apparently I mean, it's the last area. It should, but it was still really, really tough. So I probably put it like lower, but
mm.
I totally appreciate it.
Sure.
One, because of nostalgia, but two, because I understand what they were trying to go for. Like
Well,
this is the second game is a big step up from the first game, and then the third game even does even better. You know what I mean? And so I just feel like it's like a stepping stone in the greatness that will be the Dragon that most people remember the Dragon Quest series for.
yeah, it's interesting because when we talked all about Dragon Warrior 1, one of the things that we kept or that I kept hammering on about was, this is one, this is the standard. Whatever comes after this, it's gonna be what they interpret was either their successes or their mistakes.
Hmm.
And that's why I really am having it. Why I said to myself, maybe we should do Dragon Quest 2 because I had that feeling like, oh, I'm gonna want to talk about that. For me, I think I would agree with you. Lower tier, but maybe high lower tier.
Right.
People already know from the last Dragon Warrior episode that we did. My least favorite one is 9. I'm not even fronting about that. But since I've like kind of been doing more research of the Dragon Quest universe because of Dragon Quest Heroes, it's weird. I think I already know what my bottom 3 are, so I'm just gonna tell people right off the bat: 3, 6, and 9. So if the pattern continues, I won't like Dragon Quest 12 whenever that comes out. But it I like 2 enough where, like I said, it got me excited to do this special. But anyway, all right. So let's. Oh, one other aspect that, and I want to ask you if you understand what I'm saying here. So one thing that I also noticed that Dragon Quest 2 has that, or it doesn't have, that Dragon Quest 1 had, which I believe I criticized about, was, remember in Dragon Warrior 1, they had, like, when you went to go fight the dragon, you didn't actually see a dragon on the screen when you're walking. It just,
Right.
This one, I don't think had any of that.
Yeah, whenever there was like a specific monster you had to fight, like if it was I don't know, like a boss monster or something, or they held a certain treasure that you needed, they usually showed those monsters on screen, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, so I noticed that was different from 1 as well. So, all right, let's get to the plot. Let's go through. I mean, it starts off pretty tragic.
Right. So, actually, interestingly enough, for the U.S. version, when it originally came out on the NES days, was like one of the first times you saw like an opening cutscene in the essence of, you saw this, because it wasn't in the Japanese version. It just started off a little differently.
What
So
is the Japanese version?
basically, there's this evil wizard named Hargon, and he has like this cult or following of monsters or whatever, and they're just taking over towns and being the classic evil bad guy thing. So they go to this castle of Moonbrook, and they pretty much decimate it. And luckily, a soldier is able to survive, and he gets over to where your hero is at, and he basically tells the king, "Hey, the town's fallen. We need to rise up, or something's got to happen where we got to defeat Hargon." So
So
you
wait,
hear about
so
that.
wait a minute. So how did the Japanese version differ from that?
So the Japanese version differed because it didn't have the opening cutscene of, the princess and the king of Moonbrook. They were hanging out, and then all of a sudden, monsters came, and then they had to fight their way out of there. Pretty much the opening game started off with the soldier in the hero's castle, just kind of like a
Oh.
wounded soldier, just pretty much going right to the king.
I remember thinking back then when I first played this, was I thought that was so unique about how, again, this is an opening cutscene. I wasn't really used to that in games on that time.
Right.
So, and then you see the king fight, and the king loses eventually, but he gets the princess into what I had assumed at that point was some dungeon, which I'm sure we'll get into more about that. But okay, let's continue. So they're the soldier gets to the other kingdom,
Right.
and he dies.
Yeah, he does pass away. And so your hero, or your character, the hero, pretty much is, I wouldn't say ordered by your dad or whatever, but he's told by your dad to pretty much go visit your cousins and recruit them, because you're all Edric's descendants, and you're the only ones who can defeat Hargon. So you leave, you go visit the kingdom of Cannock, where the prince is. He's not there. Eventually, you get him, and you go to Moonbrook, which is where Hargon destroyed that castle in the very beginning. You find out that the princess is a dog. You rescue her, and you pretty much go and get a boat. Then from there, you can sail around the world, and then from there, you learned that you had to collect 5 crests.
All right, hold on. Let's stop right there. Let's do a
Yeah.
little reflect of what we've just heard. So, when I remember, and from what I rewatched of your Let's Play, the prince, it's a
Hmm.
pain in the ass to try to find him because they tell you to go somewhere, and then he actually is not there. If I
Right.
am
He's
not
not
mistaken.
there at first, and then you have to go back to the to the castle, and then they say, "Oh, he left for whatever the town. I think it's called Leftwin or something like that." And
Mm,
you had to go to the town, and then he was finally there. But that was you had to talk to specific people to make sure that they like activated the
sure.
scene so that you can get him.
Yeah.
Also, one thing that became a standard after for this game was whenever a party member joined your group, they had like a little theme, a little like, "Hey, this person
Oh
joined your
yeah.
group" thing.
And which I can tell you right now, guys, still continues on Dragon Quest Heroes,
Right, yes,
which is
which is pretty
great. Yeah.
amazing.
So the prince, um, does he come off like is he does he have real good equipment, bad equipment? Like, is it one of these things where you get him, you're like, up, first thing we're gonna do, we need to buy you new equipment.
Right, yes. Usually, yeah, that's how he comes. So, you got to spend some time building, farming or grinding or whatever, and
Mm,
getting some good equipment for him before you can head on. But he is very useful in the beginning because he has healing spells for you and antidote spells and whatnot. So, and he has a few attack spells in the beginning. So he's pretty good until you get the princess, and then you're like, I don't really use him too much. But the interesting thing I've noticed as I played the game more and more is like just testing out spells that I always thought were kind of useless, and they actually end up being useful. So the
mm.
prince does have his uses for sure.
Now,
And,
no, sorry, go ahead, continue.
oh no, I'm sorry.
No,
You
no.
go ahead.
Okay, so no. So my other question here is when it comes to the prince, does he? Because okay, and we're gonna get to this, but clearly, the princess knows about Hargon. Does the
Hmm.
prince know about Hargon? Because I don't feel like I was ever really clear on that.
Right. So if you go and talk to if you end up going to talk to like the citizens of Cannock and stuff like that, they do talk about how Hargon has like this reign of terror going on. But really, there's really only been one castle, Moonbrook, that's been attacked by him. But a lot of the citizens know what's going on. Obviously, NPCs you talk to them and they pretty much tell you the plot. So yeah, I think they did know, but
So
for some
so
reason
where?
they didn't bother doing anything until something some castle ended up getting
Sure,
attacked.
and that's understandable. But what I'm trying to understand was the prince actually looking for the hero, or was he just going to the spring? Because I think it was like a spring of bravery. Maybe he was just trying to, better himself, kind of thing.
Right, right. I think I think when that event happened with Moonbrook, I don't know how the Cannock found out.
Mm,
Apparently, news travels fast in role playing games, but
right.
I think he was getting ready to go on a journey with you. I guess so. He
Okay.
ended up going to the Spring of Bravery. I guess it's like a thing where you get like christened or something like that.
Sure. I mean, it's a standard, just general RPG thing. Oh, go do this, and you'll gain like it'll probably give you something, maybe a new weapon. But in this case, you also get the experience just by doing the journey.
Right, right, right.
And then, of course, the princess is actually a dog at first.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to one of the towns, maybe you can remind me which town it was, if you remember. No, that's
The
all right.
name escapes
That's
me.
all right.
I think it's called Hamlin.
All right. Well, you go into, we'll say Hamlin, and you see a dog, and you talk to the dog, and it follows you, but only until you actually leave the town. The dog
Right.
does not come along.
Which was kind of interesting back then. It was like, huh, I wonder why this dog's following me.
Mm. So, and then, so how do you wind up getting the princess? Because certainly you don't go on the journey with a dog for the entire time.
No, so once you get to, I believe the town's Hamlin, you hear about what happened in Moonbrook, and you can actually explore Moonbrook there. There, I think you find the ghost of the dead king, and he says that you have to collect the Mirror of Ra, which has become an iconic item in
Mm-hmm.
the Dragon Quest series as well. That's another item that kind of like I'm pretty sure is in almost every one after this. And so you have to collect the Mirror of Ra in order to reveal, because he pretty much says that they turned my daughter into a dog, and you need this mirror to return her to her former self.
Mm.
So one of the things about it is that you have to go search an area, a swamp area that you could see four bridges. And let me tell you, that area is always very difficult to get through because the enemies are pretty tough, especially for only two people. They get really tough. Oh man.
Is there any suggestions for those that are playing when they get to this area that you point out?
Right. So there's these enemies called the baboons or whatever. Those guys are super duper strong, and you'd want to take those guys out as fast as you can. And then I think there's enemies. They're called centipedes or whatever. They're like these red insect-looking guys. Those guys have really high defense,
Mm-hmm.
and you would want to use magic on them.
All right. So okay, so you go into the swamp. You find the mirror of Ra, and then you basically just use it on the princess, and she obviously wants to come with you because of everything that's happened.
Exactly.
And then where are we at after that? Then you go and find out about the crest. Is that where we left off? Or
Well,
do you get
yeah.
the boat first?
We go to a tower so that we can go jump off another tower. We get something there, but then eventually we get to a town that has that's known for ships, and we end up picking up. I think it's called Lannisport. Anyways, we pick up a ship and we get to sail around the world. And during the adventures of sailing around the world, that's one nice thing too about this game is at that point it becomes very non-linear, where you can kind of go wherever you want at that point. You don't have to follow a set area to go to, which
Right.
I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, because like in Dragon Warrior 1, all it was basically one island, but it cut off at one part, so therefore you couldn't actually just go right to that part. Like
Right,
you
right,
have to
right.
go. Think of it as a circle, but not complete, really.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say not complete, by just a little bit, literally.
Right.
And before you get the ship, you save some girl who was getting attacked by monsters and no one noticed, and I don't know why she was in that sketchy part of town anyway.
Yeah, that always seemed pretty weird because it's like whenever you see like swamps and stuff, you're like, oh no, this is not a good area to be. But somehow she was over there, and monsters were over there too. So it was like, uh-oh.
Yeah. Now at this point, did we learn about the crest before you get the ship, or is that after the ship?
That is after the ship. I believe you learn it when you go to when you eventually head back to Alfgard, which is the world from the first game. It's much smaller,
Which
but pretty much everything's there, sort of.
which I remember as a kid seeing that, and I was just very confused.
Right,
Like, I
and
was like,
then
what?
the awesome thing about that too is when you land on Alfgard, you actually hear the overworld theme of the first game,
Mhm.
which is really cool. I like how they kind of threw that back.
Yeah.
And so I think you go there, and I believe the guy that you learn the crest about is actually the Dragon Lord's grandson. So
Mhm.
you go to Tanticle Castle, and you learn that the king is in hiding or whatever, and they kind of tell you that you should go check out the Dragon Lord's castle.
Why is
So
he in hiding again? And I assume this is not. Well, it can't be. It's like you said, 100
I
years after, so it's not the same king.
no, it's not. I think he's in hiding. I believe whenever you actually end up meeting him. I believe he tells you that he's in hiding because he's afraid of what Hargon might do to him. So he's
Okay.
staying in hiding.
Oh, because his kingdom spawned a hero before. Is that?
Yeah, I guess so.
All right. Okay. So then the Dragon Lord, or now this is the Dragon Lord's.
Grandson. Interestingly enough, the bad guy's grandson actually helps you out in saying he asks you if you want to I think he asked you if you want to fight him, but then he's like, "Nah, I'm not gonna fight you." And then he's like, "Do you want my help or not?" And you have to say no, yes, and he'll pretty much tell you about there's crests in the world, and if you want to stop Hargon, you need to collect 5 crests or something like
Yeah,
that.
he's not holding any grudges. He's not doing a Hatfields and McCoy's type
Yeah.
of situation.
Yeah, he's not too bitter. I mean, maybe he's happy that his dad or his grandfather's not around, so he can just chill.
I am kind of surprised because it actually does look. Because I don't remember. Do you actually run into monsters there still or no?
I believe you do, and
Okay.
they really simplified the castle a lot more too, which was really nice. I mean, one thing about this game too, mechanic that I forgot to mention was like when you go into a cave, you don't have to use a spell to
Oh,
see anything
that's right.
because they don't have the radiant spell in that game.
That's right. And also, you don't have to click on what was it, stairs to go downstairs.
Right, right, and you don't have to click on like take or search or whatever because they pretty much do the same thing.
So,
And also another thing in this game too is they have keys, and as you go through the game, you have to collect three main keys. You got your silver key, which opens up like silver doors, like you saw in the first Dragon Warrior. Then they had gold keys, which open up red doors.
mm,
And then they had jailer key, which opens up jail jail doors, pretty much.
mm.
And the nice thing about that is that they didn't break when you used them,
Oh,
so that
that's
was
right. I
pretty
forgot
cool.
about. I forgot that the Dragon Warrior ones broke.
Yeah, which was kind of like, oh man, really?
How like now thinking about it, and I've never. I don't think I even bought up on that special. What the hell happened? You try on it, you click it in, and then what? It goes to pieces. It goes to shambles. Like what the hell?
Yeah, I guess whoever was creating the keys back then must have been pretty shoddy at their
Yeah,
workmanship.
talk about shitty key makers. Wow.
Right.
All right, but no. So yeah, so you learn about the five crests from our new Dragon Lord grandson friend,
Mm-hmm.
and then here's where I guess would you say this is where the ship comes particularly useful?
Yeah, the ship you would have to you're pretty much going to sail around the world trying to find crests and they can actually be one of the reasons why it can get a little difficult after that is because um, it's hard to get them because you don't really know where they are. You have to get this thing. It's called the fairy flute,
Mm-hmm.
and you would use that, or maybe what echoing flute. It's called the
Yeah, the
echoing
echoing
flute.
flute. Yeah, that sounds right.
Right, and so you would use that flute in various areas and try to find the where the hell the crest is. Now, one story that I had about the fire crest, which you would get in a shrine that you would go to. Also, another thing that I forgot to mention: warp gates. Pretty much these swirling, like watery things. You could walk on them and warp to various areas in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this shrine called the Shrine of Fire or whatever, and it's got like three warp gates there. But the thing you don't know is that there's actually a crest there. And now, as a kid, me and my brother looked all over the world for the friggin' thing, and we
Probably
were
me too.
searching everywhere. And I don't know if you remember, but back in the day, Nintendo Power
Yep.
had a hotline that you could call and get help on like finding stuff. So me and my brother ended up calling up and of course it was like $1.99 a minute
Right.
and then whatever and they would always keep you on hold but so that's how they get that
No, of
money
course.
so we'd call up and we were like we don't know where to find the crest in Dragon Warrior 2 and they'd be like oh did you get the one here, did you get the one here? And so we wrote down where it was and so we had to go to this little area and search like every single spot because we could not find it and we would hear the echoing flute but we were like where the hell is it? So one nice thing that they did do for, I believe they did it for the remakes, was they actually like made like a little glowy uh thing, so you can like
Oh,
search over there and you'd be like,
okay.
okay, there's where the thing is. Made it a lot easier to find those crests.
I also
But
feel like for another game they used this system. And granted, with the glowy thing for something, I just wish I remembered which game it was that makes you kind of go around and search like all the different towns. But yeah, I remember not knowing where in the world they were. In fact, part of me thinks maybe when I was a kid, I probably never beat the game, and then wouldn't beat it till later on in life. Uh,
right, and the crest thing is pretty hard because it's like even if you talk to everybody in the world, it can still be a little cryptic on where the stuff is. And like there'd be certain parts where you'd get to a town and you'd hear the echoing flute and you'd be like, "Where is it here?" And so
right.
you'd have to look like all over the place.
Yeah,
And
it's
and and to get the crest, you had to go to like towns, you had to go to towers, you had to go to shrines. Hell, you even had to go to the final area of the game to get the final one in order to go and get something. Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
it's weird because like we both said, oh, this one of the new aspects of this game compared to Dragon Warrior 1 is the ships. And I'm wondering if the ships, like, if this particular find the crest thing was made because they were like, oh, let's give everyone a reason to just go. You want an open world, right, guys? Here you go. Have your open world.
Right.
Like, because I definitely agree with you, is that there's, so, these days there are, you can just type in something. It's real easy. I think a lot of people in this generation probably take that for granted.
Right.
Whereas you were finding out, you called the hotline. If you were lucky enough, you had a friend that had the same game and maybe had information that you didn't know, and vice versa. But yeah, I remember. I think I had to call the hotline like once or twice for something. Obviously with my mother.
Right.
Because what was it? Kids, get your parents' permission before you call.
Exactly. Yeah, we had to give him. My mom's credit card. Well, no, I think it just ended up showing up on the phone bill or something.
Oh yeah,
but yeah, my mom was not happy about it when she found out. She was like, "What is this? What is this charge on here on Nintendo Power?" Like, uh-oh. So we did end up getting in trouble, but at least we figured out where the crest was.
Mom, I had to find the crest. It was important. I had to save the world.
Exactly, Mom.
For only about $3 to $5.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you said sometimes they'll put you on hold, so it
I know. It'd be like $1.99 or for the first additional minute and 99 cents or something like that. You know how they used to have those things back in the day.
To be fair to them, though, let's put ourselves in their shoes for a second here. You have no idea what call's coming. You don't have Google to say, "Oh, here it is." I guarantee you that is a general number that like just some big video game fan has. So then that person probably has to put you on hold and goes, "Guys, who knows stuff about Dragon Quest 2?"
Right.
Like, it's to be fair to them, I'm sure the system wasn't exactly a quick one for them to do as well.
That's true.
Like, oh wait, someone has a question about friggin' Super Mario Brothers 3 over here. All right, so do we remember where the crests are? No, one was in like a jail cell.
Right. One was in the town of Hamlin.
Okay.
I think that was the water crest. There was a crest that was in a lighthouse, which was this big tower, and the towers in this game aren't like towers in regular games that you would play nowadays. Pretty much they really made them dickish.
Oh,
where you have to go. You started like on the bottom right corner, and you would have to go all the way around to go into the center of the tower. It was crazy. And then sometimes you would go all the way up the tower to find out that it was a dead end, and they have to go all the way down.
Or some BS treasure chest that's like, oh, here's 100 gold.
Right, and you're like, why did I do all that for 100 gold?
Right, for like you have 1,000 already because you've been fighting all the way up there.
Right.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I still like them. I really like the music for the tower, which they do bring back a number of times.
Yes,
throughout
they
the entire
do.
Series.
Yes, they do. So, there was a crest in the lighthouse. There was a crest that you got from a king when you had to fight one of his monsters because he had like this cool little arena area.
Okay.
And then there was a crest that you got at the fire shrine. That's 4. And then the last one you got was in the Road to Rhone, which was, I believe, the life crest. Anyway, so you get these 5 crests, and then you have to go and visit the spirit who's called Rubius. And she pretty much gives you like a locket to protect yourself against like, lies or whatever, like magical deceit or something like that.
I do like the fact that they decided to carry. That's an aspect they did decide to carry over. They were like, you know what, guys, the locket works, just like how we got what's her face's locket, Gwaylin's locket in the first one. Let's continue the tradition. I don't remember much about Dragon Warrior 3, but I'm very curious now if there's a locket in that game.
I think there is, and it's near the end of the game.
I want to see, is this a secret continuation that no one has discovered before? That lockets?
I don't know, because I'm not sure if they're... Well, as you know, these games, the first 3 games are a trilogy.
That's true,
or a series. But I know you get a locket for each of the 3 games. I'm pretty sure.
So yeah, for this trilogy, this should just be called the Locket trilogy.
Yeah. But so you have to actually one cool area in the game, but was also very dangerous was at one point in the game you had to head down into a volcano of all places, and there you had to, which was a tricky area because there were damaged floors. They were pretty much like lava. You had to walk on lava, and you ended up finding this evil, this well, the cult of Hargon was down there, but they were like worshiping something that you had to grab. Like this
Okay.
stuff wasn't explained as
Yeah.
well in the NES version as it was in like the remakes, where they had more opportunity to have NPCs or whatever have more precise dialogue and whatnot. So you go down there and you have to get this item. It's called, in the original game, it was called the Eye of Malroth. And I
Mm.
remember thinking to myself when I played that game, I'm like, what is Malroth
Yeah,
and
like
why do we have his eye? That's really weird.
it gets weirder later on because like with everything else, because yeah, I'm led to believe during this entire thing that it's just Hargon.
Yeah. Which is, this is a nice little twist. So once you have all this stuff, you go to the Road of Rhone. You you're able, hopefully you're using a guide. If not, you have graph paper, which I did back when I was a
Right.
kid. Or you actually, maybe even Nintendo Power. I'm not 100% sure. They might have printed out a walk or a guide or something that they went in their magazine, but I'm not 100%
I
sure.
mean, if they did, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if that was the case for every once in a while. It definitely wasn't every, like, all of the things in the entire game, because they dedicate, like, different sections for different games since it was supposed to be a magazine of many different games, not just
Right.
one. So you only got, even if you did get stuff from Nintendo Power, it's only going to be bits and pieces.
Exactly. And so the interesting or the bad thing about the Road to Rhone is two things that people, or three, pretty much 3 things that people will always complain about in the Road to Rhone, which I'll complain about too. One, pitfalls. So in the very first area of the dungeon, you'll be walking around in this large, pretty much open space. And what ends up happening is if you walk in the wrong spot, boom, you get thrown down into the basement, and then you'd have to go all the way up, and then these pitfalls were everywhere in this room, so you have to make sure that you were walking correctly and making sure that you weren't like falling on the pitfalls,
Mhm.
or even I don't think in the NES version they actually showed the pitfall after you fell into it, so you'd have to go up and you'd have to be like, okay, I remember this spot, don't fall in that spot.
Oh,
the set
they didn't even show like when you actually fall through and then there's like a little circle there
I
that shows
don't
that you
know if
already
they.
stood
I
in.
can't. I don't recall if they did that for the
Okay.
NES version. I know they did that for the remakes. I'm pretty sure they did that for the NES. Now that I'm
Mm,
thinking about it, they probably did. But it's been such a long time since I played the
sure.
original. So the second thing that they did in the dungeon was they made infinite loops. Infinite loops pretty much is you go into one screen. If you pick the wrong, you can go, north, south, east, or west. If you pick the wrong direction, you'll end up back in that same room, and you do that over and over again. So you might actually think you're making some progress, but in the end, you'll find out that you're not making any progress. And there
Right.
were a lot of those areas
Sure.
in the second section of the Road to Rhone. And then finally, obviously, really nasty encounters is the third thing that made the Road to Rhone really incredibly dangerous. And the interesting thing about it too is like that's the area where you can get some of the best equipment in the game, but yet it's the most dangerous area. So they really ramped it up, and the dangers of that area are like whenever anyone talks about like even nowadays when I'm playing like a new game, I always like think about like, is it as bad as the Road to Rhone? And I'm like, no. Like
That's the
like I
standard
know a
for
lot of
you.
people who like judge the game's dungeon's difficulty on the Road to Rhone because it was so difficult,
That is
especially in the NES
amazing.
version.
I mean the fact that it's the standard for like for difficulty, that is amazing in itself to me. Like it's
Yeah.
that difficult. Uh,
So luckily, if you're good enough, which most people should, hopefully, with a guide, of course,
Right. I mean,
you'll get out of there.
if you were fortunate enough to find those 5 crests
Right, right, right.
and spent your $6 to $7 with Nintendo.
Yeah. So when you did that, you were able to get out of there, and then you're like, oh my god, thank God I'm out of there. But the fight is not over because then you had Roan, the actual like, because it's pretty cool if you think about it like visually, like you're going through this cave, and then Roan is like this giant like icy mountain area that you have to like explore. So you get out of there and you're like, oh man, this is so great. Well, I'm finally out of there. I hope there's somewhere to save or heal or
Mm.
something. And let me tell you, the road, that part, Roan, to get to the healing spot, oh my god, very dangerous because there's these monsters there that will give you a whooping. And it's actually a really great place to level up, obviously. But there's these monsters that they didn't program correctly in the NES version. They're called
Hmm.
Silver Bat-Boons,
Okay.
and they could use this spell called Sacrifice that'll automatically
Oh
kill your
no.
that'll automatically kill your entire group. And they didn't end up doing anything to kind of like put like a, what the hell is it called, they didn't do anything to pretty much like make it so that it would miss your characters. It would almost always hit your characters.
Mm.
Now the thing about it, the prince actually has that same spell.
But
And
let me guess. It conveniently barely works when he uses it.
yeah, well, it works, but then he ends up dying too.
Oh, duh, because it's sacrificed. Okay.
Right, right. So it can be really, it's an interesting spell, I guess, if it's like I consider that like a last ditch spell to use, but
And you know what? Maybe I'm wrong with this, but I don't feel that that's something a spell that they had continued, or at least very little of it in future series. Because I can't tell you a sacrifice spell for off the top of my head for any future series. I mean, there's spells that will that I know that will take damage from you, but you don't die, and then it goes to your enemies. Can you tell me if you recall sacrifice being in any other game?
Yeah, I think it's in a couple other games, but seriously, I don't ever recall using it, and I don't
Mm,
know anyone who would use it.
yeah.
Like, it's pretty much like I was saying, like a last ditch effort spell,
Mm,
where if you're really down and out and you need to use this spell, and a lot of times late in the other games it doesn't work as well either. I mean, I think it's just a weird spell
it is
to
very
use.
strange. Yeah.
Yeah. So then we get to Roan, and then we have this area. It's called the final, like shrine or something like that. I forget. And at this place, you'll actually get a dude, an old priest guy, who heals you up to the max. And then there's actually a warp point there if you want to get the hell out of there. If you not ready to do it, you can always warp back. But remember, you have to go through the road to Roan.
Mm,
So what ends up happening is you go into Hargon's castle, but you find out that it looks just like the hero's the hero's hometown,
mm,
Maidenhall. So
right.
what you have to do there is use that locket, and it pretty much reveals Hargon's castle. So the locket does come into play there.
Now I have a question about, because I like you mentioned, it does look, it makes it look like Maiden Hall with everything, the inn, the I guess a safe place, the king. What
Hmm.
happens if you actually buy something, and also if you sleep there? Does
Right.
anything special happen?
Yeah. If you end up sleeping there, it says that you have a good night's rest, and it's like, oh yeah, and you hear the in music, and it looks like your character's healed up. But then when you find out that it's a fake, you're pretty much back to whatever HP you had going in there. And
Okay,
if you tried to buy something, I believe I tried doing that. It pretty much just ends up being a cypress stick, I think.
all right.
So like, there isn't a lot to buy there. I think it's just herbs and stuff. But if you buy anything, it's cypress sticks, and it's like,
and
yeah, I don't need that.
you're still out of the money. They still
Yeah,
take.
yep, you're
Okay.
still out of that money too.
All right, so we have a transformation. We get the real Hargon Castle. Let's continue.
So as you're walking up through the castle, Hargon has three pretty much like bodyguards or whatever that you have to fight. There's one, he's a Cyclops dude. He's called Atlas. Then you gotta fight Pazuzu, which is like a winged baboon guy. And then the third one is called, I think, like Zarlox or something like that.
Mm.
And he's like this big demon guy. And then finally you get to Hargon, and
Well,
you're like, all right.
hold on. How do you rate the difficulty of these three quote unquote bosses?
I would rate Atlas probably. Atlas and Zarlox are probably the toughest because Atlas, he's just really physically strong, and the nasty thing about him is he gets 2 attacks per turn, which I guess is fair since I mean you have 3 characters versus 1. But he does this thing. I forget what the AI feature is called, but it pretty much he'll hit one character twice and almost kill them. So you have to be prepared to heal up as soon as you can. And then Zarlox, he has the spell. It's called Explode It, which the princess can learn as well.
Mm.
But he likes to use that quite a bit. So you got to make sure to heal up. One thing about this game, which I wish, which was kind of like a drawback, was like after this game, they actually made a healing spell which healed the whole group.
Okay.
In this game, they didn't have anything like that, so you have to kind of heal everybody individually, and it could be a real pain.
Mm.
Yeah, and
see that.
with those boss battles, you kind of have to watch out for that stuff.
Right. All right. So let's get to Hargon. Here we go.
So we finally get to Hargon. We go and we fight him, and he seems to be a little bit more of a cakewalk than you would expect Hargon to be. I mean, you beat him, and there's no transformation or anything. You're just kind of standing there. And I thought that was kind of interesting. So you try to leave, and the whole place kind of like sets on fire. And then you find out the real evil guy, who is Malroth. Now, in the original game, I don't think they give you like a lot of detail on who Malroth is.
No, not at all.
But pretty much Hargon is trying to resurrect this guy. They call him the Dark God or the Dark One or whatever, and he's trying to resurrect him. And in the remakes, I believe he uses the last of his power or whatever to get him to come over. And so then you have to fight the final bad guy of the game, which is Hargon. I mean, not Hargon, Malroth.
Right.
And interestingly enough, he doesn't need that eye that you have, but he is pretty nasty. He does a lot of out of all the Dragon Quest bosses, I would say he's one of the hardest ones.
And you're talking about the entire series?
Yes, because
Wow,
he's
okay.
one of the only Dragon Quest bosses that can heal himself. And not like
That's
heal
true.
himself with like a heal more spell or whatever. He uses a heal all spell.
Oh God.
Yeah, can you believe that? I am so glad they ended up not ever doing that again. Can you imagine?
Oh, so
You might have put in like 10 minutes of fighting this guy.
Yeah, heal all.
And then all of a sudden, boom, heal all, and you're like, what? I've seen that happen many a times, and even to myself, it's happened.
if there's no heal, if he doesn't cast heal all at all, do you think it's a particular short battle? Like, do you think he has a lot of HP?
In the NES version, he doesn't have as much HP as in the remake versions. They boosted his HP. I think he has like 1,000 maybe in the NES version, or like 700 or something like that. And like the remakes, I think they doubled it. So it's like whoa. But I think they got rid of the heal all spell in the remakes, luckily.
Okay.
But yeah, heal all? You kidding me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cheap. And I was like, what the hell? But so once you defeat him, Hargon's castle crumbles,
Mm.
and you pretty much have the standard Dragon Quest ending, which is pretty cool. Instead of it just happens and the game ends, and you have the final ending sequence, you can actually explore the world.
Right.
And talk to the people all around the world and see what they have to say about you defeating Hargon, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool when you go talk to if you took the time to go talk to the Dragon Lord's grandson, he has some interesting stuff to say. He's like, hey, what about if we become buddies? Let's become buddies. Which I thought was kind of funny.
And this is after you had beaten Malroth.
Right, after you beat Malroth.
Okay.
and of course the world, more encounters. And so finally, after like doing your own little thing, you can explore the world if you want and just hear everybody praise you and see how cool you are and all that. You go back to Maidenhall, where the king pretty much tells you, "Hey man, you want to be the new king?" And you're like, "Yeah, sure." And then the king says to your two buddies, "You can help him have a unite the kingdoms and be a better and rebuild Moonbrook kind of thing."
Oh, so
And that's
this so because we talked about how this 1, 2, and 3 are a trilogy.
hmm
Technically, this is. I mean, it's the second game, but this is the one that takes place last, right?
right, right. In the timeline, yes, it does
Yes.
because because it what is it? It pretty much the third game is pretty much the prequel to the first two. So
Okay.
yeah, this one is kind of like the final one in the timeline. But interestingly enough, Jim, there is a sort of sequel to this game called Dragon Quest Monsters Caravan Heart. It's pretty much the guy from Dragon Quest Seven, and it's a Dragon Quest Monsters game, and
Okay.
you're actually in the world of Dragon Warrior Two. And I just
Huh.
remembered the name. It's called Toland.
So that and that's after this
Yeah,
one.
that's like 1,000 year, a couple hundred years after Dragon Warrior
Like, is
Two.
there a restored Moonbrook in that game?
Sadly, no, which I found very surprising because I figure that's probably like the first thing you guys should do is rebuild Moonbrook.
Right. Yeah. I
But it's kind of interesting to see all the towns again. You get to hear all the great music and stuff, and it's really cool.
I wonder how many of those side games are actually related into the main series in general. Not just talking about um the first three, but I'm talking even in general. Like I saw a video the other day that had someone put up every footage from like a history of Dragon Quest, and I saw
hmm
all these um like all these little side games that they did. Some were only released in Japan or whatnot. And I was first thing I was thinking was, why in the hell is Taloon in so many games?
Right, right, right.
He's in like 3 or 4. Taloon from Dragon Warrior 4, for those
hmm
that don't know. But I'm wondering now how many may actually touch the main series in some way.
Well,
Even to
I
something
know, I
little.
know, I know a couple of the Dragon Warrior monster games. They do end up touching the main series in the essence of, like in Dragon Quest Six. There's a character named Terry, and he's pretty much your main character in the Dragon Warrior monster game.
Okay.
And yeah, it's pretty much takes place before even that game happens, which is kind of cool.
Mm. All
And
right.
then obviously the Monster Caravan Heart game takes place. It's the main guy, one of the main heroes from Seven, and he goes back to the world of Two, which is kind of, like I said, pretty cool.
Yeah. So also another so now that we've kind of done the whole plot here, I'm still not that clear on. So we know that these three are cousins: the prince, the princess, and your main hero.
hmm
Which one is actually, if any, the son of Edric? Is it just the hero? This is where I'm a little confused about certain things, and maybe I'm just not being stupid and not realizing it. So I'm
Right.
thinking Edric and Gwaelin, they go out, they discover this new world, which is what Dragon Quest II is. Then they have a kid. Who's that kid?
Right. What I think it happens is, Edric is the guy from the third game. He eventually has a kid who's the hero, or eventually has, some kid or whatever, and what's the word? Descendant. He pretty much has a descendant
Well, that's the
who
thing. When I
who's
hear the word descendant, I think down the line. So Edric is the Dragon Warrior 3. Then
right,
he has whoever it is on Dragon Warrior 1.
right,
Dragon
right, right,
Warrior 1's hero goes with Gwaelin to the land of Dragon Warrior 2.
right.
Who's the kid there?
I think they had multiple kids. I think that's probably what happened, and each of those kids form their own kingdoms, and then obviously maybe they're even the
So
like
okay,
maybe
so
the
wait,
king.
so time out right there. So let's see. So now if you're saying that all three of them are if they had 3 kids, then they form their own kingdom. So you're saying now those kids, the 3 kids, all gave birth with to sons and daughters, and you're saying that's the generation that is the hero, the Prince of Canuck, and the Princess of Moonbrook?
Yeah, that's what I think.
Okay, no,
Maybe like an extra generation there. I mean,
I think there
if you
has
think
to
about
be.
it, like people from the Middle Ages or whatever, they didn't live that long, so it could be like 3 generations down the line. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I was when I was like rewatching some of your Let's Plays and just even thinking about the quest in general, I was like, wait a minute, they're called cousins. Now this would be much easier if they just said brothers and sisters. So now I
Right,
want to sit here and try to figure out this family tree.
right,
And
right,
where in the
right.
world how in the world it got to this.
Yeah. So the branches definitely spread out when after the first Dragon War. They're pretty busy getting on, I guess.
Yeah, well, I gotta be honest with you. They did a lot that's in what's supposed to be 100 years.
Yeah.
Because if there's all those generations are supposed to be within 100 years, and then like we don't see any of the older relatives at all. Oh,
Hmm.
that like I mean that's I kind of feel like maybe they should have said it was like 300 years in the future. That would
Right,
have
right,
been
right.
less like, oh yeah, okay, I'm not going to question this at all.
Hmm.
All right, very good. So one other thing. So overall, what do you feel like is the best thing? Like when you play Dragon Quest 2, what do you say would be the best way to describe it to someone in like one, 2 or 3 sentences and very short kind of. You don't hold me to the amount of sentences, but just a short description on why someone should play Dragon Quest 2.
Well, I would tell someone if they want to play Dragon Quest 2, and this is a great stepping stone game, like to see how the series evolved even more, and just kind of see even more stuff that originally started in this Dragon Quest series and then went on. So let's say someone came to me and said, "Hey, should I play Dragon Quest 2? I'm kind of like in the RPGs. I want to start playing RPGs. I would probably not recommend this game
Mm,
to play right away.
right.
But if they did sort of have an interest in Dragon Quest, like they wanted, like let's say, I think with you said you played 4 and then 8, and then you went back and you checked
Yeah,
out
mine
the
was
other
weird.
ones.
Yeah, because they weren't released in the States.
Right. So if someone played like 8 and they were like, "Oh man, I really love this game. Should I go back and check out 2?" I would say yes, because it's kind of cool to see
Mm.
where the game's roots kind of came from.
Oh,
I
yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
this was the first game in the series to have multiple party members, just a whole bunch of new features, a ship, uh, you know, different characters that were really each had their own role in the game. Like some games you can play where every character's pretty much the same. You can make them the same. This
Mm.
one they're very different. The music is really wonderful. It's very like I say all the time. It's a very colorful game, and it does test your limits, especially near the end of the game.
Right,
But
after you get
it's
that third
worth it.
party member in the ship, right?
Right, right, right.
All right, well, very good, Pete. Do you want to give any final plugs before we head out of here?
Yeah, pretty much. If you don't know me by now, I'm Kenshin1913 on YouTube. You can go there, type in Kenshin1913. Also, I'm on Facebook and Twitter. Just type up Kenshin1913. That's pretty much it.
Actually, I did forget to bring out one thing. I knew there was something else. So, guys, I am at a crossroads here because I've loved doing the Dragon Warrior 1 and the Dragon Warrior 2 special, and there's a big part of me that wants to do 3, but there's also a big part of me that remembers, but you don't like 3. So
Oh
stay.
no, I like
No,
3.
not
I
you.
don't
No,
like
no,
the.
no, not you. Me, meaning
Oh,
me.
you. Oh,
Me
you. You
talking.
should. You should do it.
Me
You should
talking
do
to
it.
myself, saying, "Yeah, you're excited now, but remember, me talking to myself, you don't like 3."
Hmm.
So I was like, remember, I'm all numbers, I guess, in the Dragon Quest series that in threes, 3, 6, and 9. Those are my 3 least favorite ones. I don't know if I have an order of which one I like more out of 3 and 6. I'd probably have to just like rewatch some footage and see
Right.
But I don't know. I'm torn. We'll see. We'll see.
Well,
But
if you ever want to do 3, you know I'm always available.
great, yeah. Because the
And
other the other thing that would push me to do 3 is that I know 4 is next.
yeah, that's what I was
And
about to say too. Just think about it that way. That you can get 3 out of the way, so you can do 4, which is really
right.
great.
I'll think about it. I don't know when it would be, but I'll definitely keep you in mind because I feel it's like this has been the unexpected another unexpected side project that I didn't think I would have is talking about every Dragon Quest game. All right, well, Pete, you have a great rest of the day, and for everyone else, thank you for listening, and have a great day to you as well.
You too.